Welcome to Visual Studio Online Fundamentals. In this session, we're going to be talking about organizing and tracking work with Visual Studio Online. My name's Stephen Borg, and I'm joined by Aaron Bjork, a Principal Program Manager here at Microsoft. Aaron?
Thanks, Steve. As you mentioned, I'm a Program Manager here at the company, and I work on the Visual Studio Online projects and the Team Foundation Server product. And specifically in that space, I'm responsible for work item tracking, reporting, and all of our Agile project management tools. So this particular topic is near and dear to my heart.
So we've got the expert. We've got the right person to talk about this topic. Tell me a little bit about why I would track work inside of Visual Studio Online.
Yeah, so think about work item tracking in Visual Studio Online is the place where you keep all of the list of requirements, maybe defects, and feedback items that you're getting about your particular software project. We know that you're going to keep your code in Visual Studio Online, but where are you going to keep the list of everything you want either you or your team to do? And we're going to store that as work items inside Visual Studio Online, and we're going to manage them with a backlog and a set of boards that we're going to show you here in a bit.
So if I'm in Visual Studio Online, is this for a team of people? Is it an enterprise? Is it just me? Who can use Visual Studio Online?
Yeah, it's a great question. And I like to think about it is that it's really for all of us. Whether you're working as an individual on a software project, maybe you're a university student working with classmates on a project, or you're working in an enterprise on a larger software project, Visual Studio Online is for you. And we've got tools here that will allow you to manage work for all of those particular projects. For myself, I work on very large software projects. And here at the company, at Microsoft, we actually use Visual Studio Online to manage all of our work. But I'm a hobby developer on the side. I have some my own personal projects, and I track all of those in Visual Studio Online as well.
Excellent. I got to see it, though. Can you have a demo that you can show us?
Yeah, let's go take a look.
Excellent.
Okay, so I'm going to shift over here, and we're going to look at organizing your work. And the first project that I'm going to show you is appropriately named the Nirvana project. You can see here that we're looking at a dashboard of all of my work for the project. So this includes some queries here that are showing us different types of work. We've got builds at the bottom. I'm going to jump directly into our backlog and take a look at the requirements for this particular Nirvana project. Now, when I jump into that backlog, you'll notice I've got a lot of data here. I'm able to see a long list of that data. And the first thing I want to show you is that it's very easy to take the different items on this backlog and rearrange them. So maybe refactor SQL queries is the most important thing for my team to be doing, or maybe it's not important at all. And I can just grab these items and move them up and down on the backlog and reprioritize them as needed. Now, each of the items on these backlog are more than just an ID and a title. Let me jump into one of them and show you. I'm going to double click on this particular item called Add Report Path and Name to URL to improve the UX. You'll notice here that we can see the state that this particular work item is in. We can see a great description down here at the bottom that even supports inline images for showing pretty pictures of all the things that we want to build. And then we've got a nice field over here called Acceptance Criteria, which is where we're going to keep track of really what we call our definition of done for this particular work item. So when the URL links directly to the appropriate report page, we know we're done with this particular item. Now let me close that out. And while we can have a nice flat list here, which we call our backlog, I'm going to jump us up a level to a view that we call Features. And Features is a place where you can track a higher level of granularity for all those items on your backlog. And we can actually from there drill down into more fidelity. So at the top here, I've got an item called Scaled Agile Framework Reports. And this is a set of reports we're working on to support the Scaled Agile Framework. And right below that, you can see all the items that roll up to that. And we have two backlog items here, the one we just looked at before. We've got another one down here below that. And then we've actually got a bug or a defect that was found. And we're going to go ahead and get that fixed. So that's a very quick sort of view of the backlog features inside Visual Studio Online. Let me jump now over to what we call the queries area, where you can build your own set of queries to track all your work. And when I jump over to there, the first thing we're going to see is all the work assigned to us. So you can see I've got quite a bit here. I must be busy. I'm going to jump into one of my shared queries. And I've created a definition for a query called stale work items. And this is just a set of items, whether or not they're on my backlog or not, that haven't been touched in a certain number of days. I've got this one configured to actually be 60 days. And so any item that hasn't been touched in the last 60 days shows up in this list. And I can take this item and I can pin it to my home page for visibility. I can look through all the details here and get them updated. But one of the things that I like to do with these kind of queries is I like to create a work item chart, which allows me to really visualize what's going on here. So for this particular item, I'm going to jump over here, and you can see I've created a chart called Stale Work Items Chart, appropriately named, and it's got a nice little pie chart which shows me a visualization of that. Now, it's super easy to create these. I could take a look at what state all these items are in. I could look at that state over time if I wanted to see it trended. And I could even take and adjust the colors to make sure that they make sense for my project or my team. So with this chart, I've now created it. And I'm going to take it and go ahead and pin it to my project homepage. And when I jump back over, you'll see that that chart now shows up down here at the bottom. And I can easily rearrange it and put it in the place that I want, so I can really pay attention to these stale work items and hopefully drive this down to 0. Looks like we've got 14 of them right now, and we need to get that down to a healthier number.
That's a nice view. So basically, what I'm seeing is I can go into Visual Studio Online and very easily understand the status of my project, what I need to do next, and even some troubleshooting queries that point out where I might be falling over a little bit.
Yeah, that's the real beauty of these tools, is that whether this is a nice simple backlog for your particular project, whether it's a list of to-dos that you need to get done or a list of defects, we've got tools that support all of that and allow you to really compose the necessary charts, queries, and views that make sense for your project.
So I'm going to throw a curveball at you. I love this online view. It looks great. But I often work offline, and my tool of choice is Excel.
Yeah, so great question. One of the beauty of this particular project is that we've integrated it with tools that people love. And one of the tools that people love is Microsoft Excel. We find it all the time. People use it for all kinds of stuff. So I'm going to show you how you can take one of those items, let's say stale work items, and not only can you look at it here in the product, but you can also look at it in Microsoft Excel. So I'm going to jump down here to the bottom and pull up Excel. And we've got an add-in that we ship with the product, and it adds a nice little tab here into Excel called Team. I'm going to create a new list from here, and I've already bound this directly to my project, and I can go ahead and pick the list of items that are there. So let me go in and configure this. Let's configure the server connection and grab our Nirvana project. And let's go ahead and create that new list. And you'll see here that it's pointing to a query. I could select any query that I want, but I'm going to pick the stale work items query. And when I do that, it just brings all that data directly into Excel. Now, it's not just in Excel, it's actually living in Excel. So one of the great things about this is I could change the name of Improved Data Collector to, I could update this to say, to make the product better. And let's just take that item and let's publish it back to Visual Studio Online. So when I click Publish, if you were watching down here at the bottom, you noticed it happened very, very fast. But we actually pushed this data back. I'm going to switch back over to Visual Studio Online and refresh this query. And you'll notice that Improved Data Collector actually updated and fell off my list. Now, Steve, why did it fall off my list?
It's not 60 days old any longer.
It's not 60 days old. So you can see here live editing, and it happens through Excel. And you can take Excel offline and work in offline mode as well if you want to batch up changes and then push them all back to the project when you're ready.
That's powerful. That kind of covers how I could very easily use this product to kind of understand where I'm at, individual, a team, even an enterprise. Now, how do I get started? What's the call to action for the people out here? What do they do next to get started using Visual Studio Online?
Yeah, it's a great question. So let me show you how you might get started, assuming you've created yourself an account, and what that might look like for you inside the product. So let's switch back over. I've got a new tab opened here. And I've created a project about 10 minutes ago, appropriately named My First Project. You can see that our homepage here isn't quite as interesting. We've got some work to do to make it look that way. So I'm going to jump directly into the backlog here. And using our product backlog tools here, I'm going to add some items for my project. So we might build a login page. We might need a shopping cart of some sort for this particular project, maybe some administration, and then maybe some reporting. Just make up a few items. Now again, what's great is I can reorder these things as needed. So maybe we're going to start with login page at the top. It probably makes sense. We could open it up and detail what the login page looks like, attach a spec, and be ready to go. Or we could just get started. And one of the ways that I like to get started is I like to use what's known as a Kanban board or a visualization of this backlog. So this view is nice, but this view is where it really comes alive. And let me show you how this works. So this is a view of that exact same backlog that we showed earlier, but now we've got it laid out across a set of columns that represent the various states for each of these particular items. Now, these states are the default ones that we give you: new, approved, committed, and done. That might make sense for your project, but they also might not. And what we allow you to do is come up and add new states. Maybe we have new, ready. Maybe we have one called spect. And then maybe a new one called in progress. And we can map them to different states. We can adjust limits on each of these, and I'll show you how that works. And I can really compose a board that makes sense for me. Again, I'm glad that the product defaults something for me, but I really want it to be personalized and make sense for me. Now what's great is I can take these items and I can move them through this flow very, very naturally. Just dragging and dropping them, move them through. And what I can do is take a board like this, I can put it in full screen mode and put it maybe in my house on a monitor, in the hallway where my team project is, or maybe in my dorm room, and make sure that I can actually see all the work that I'm working on for a particular project.
That's nice, because that gives me an idea of whether I have too much stuff in progress or not, if I can just kind of look at this and visually see it. How do I move these things? Can I touch them? You mentioned hanging them up on a board.
Yes.
How far can I go?
Yeah, so I was using my mouse there, and of course, it seems like everybody's got touch monitors here as well. So it's probably hard to see me doing this, but I'm using my finger now, and I'm able to move these items across the board and just drag and drop them into different states. So it's really, really easy to do. And one of the things I want to point out is as I was doing that, you might have noticed that some things were changing colors as I moved them around and dragged them and dropped them. This little number that we got configured up here at the top is called a work in process limit. And that's just a simple visual cue, which is going to allow us to make sure that we don't create log jams or roadblocks in the flow of all this work. So if I've got everything spec'd, that means nothing's in progress. Or if I've got too many things in progress, I'm probably not getting any of those done. And so we give you some nice little tools there to adorn the board with those visual cues to make sure that you can keep your flow very, very healthy for your project and for your team.
That's beautiful. Aaron, thank you very much for that demo. That kind of walked us right through the whole process and kind of gave me an understanding of what I can use it for, both for an individual, my own projects, or across my entire team. So thank you very much. Appreciate you showing us how we can organize and track work in Visual Studio Online.
My pleasure, Steve. Yep.